It's the Score North Twin Show.
Score North Extra Innings, Declan Goff, AJ Fredrickson here. Just when you thought the Twins were going to go right down the drain after losing 6-7 straight games, they come back for a series win over the Washington Nationals today. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for Extra Innings content, for Score North Twin Show content with Mackie Judd and myself. Trevor Plouffe joins every Tuesday. You can go check out his episode and his appearance from yesterday. That's on this podcast feed and YouTube channel. You can expect Extra Innings content from select road games, from the majority of home games. Plenty of stuff to get into from today's game. So hit the like button and subscribe button. Appreciate everyone. Twins get a big series win against a Washington Nationals team that was obviously less than stellar coming into this series. I know they beat up on the Twins on Monday, but the Twins exploded for 10 runs yesterday. They walked the plank a little bit there in the ninth. We can get into some stuff on Jhoan Duran after kind of having another shaky performance. But hey, you stopped the bleeding with the losing streak. The Rally Sausage made a last-minute FedEx shipping appearance yesterday into the clubhouse, and ironically enough, they scored 10 runs. It helps them to a couple more home runs today. But regardless, they stopped the bleeding. They now return back home for a pivotal homestand against the Rangers for 3 this weekend. They have the Kansas City Royals for 4 games, an AL Central foe, Monday through Thursday of next week. And I know the losing streak is probably still atop on a lot of people's minds, but I think stopping the bleeding, getting a series win, and hopefully maybe starting a new streak, a winning streak, to kind of get you back on track. A big win against the Washington Nationals today.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about a couple days ago, which was, they've been kind of stuttering out here, and just the car was running out of gas, it seemed like. But you could go out to Washington, recollect yourself, and I know they dropped that first game in a pretty poor fashion, but you go ahead and you pick up 2 wins to close out the series. You get a series win under your belt, and now you're coming home. I'd rather have you win the final 2 than win the first 2 and then lose before coming back home. They're riding high, spirits are up, and this is exactly where you want it. And when you look at the standings here now, 6 games back, the Guardians in the first spot of the AL Central, and the biggest thing that's a discrepancy there is the home records. The Guardians are 17-6 at home. The Twins are 500 at 11-11. So if you just start winning games at home, you're going to start making up ground. They're pretty dead on even on for records away from home. So the Twins just need to get right at Target Field. Start with these next 2 series here. You're hosting the Rangers, who we talked about a couple days ago, which are, they have more star power on their roster up and down than definitely the Nationals do and a lot of other teams in the major leagues. But they're a beatable team. They're right around that 500 mark, similar to the Twins here this year. So it's not like they are this like Goliath, this behemoth of a team that you need to be scared of. No boots need to be shaken. Let's go ahead, get a couple more wins here, because frankly, these next 2 series, you have the Rangers, you have the Royals, who are actually above you, which is weird to say, I think. Yeah. I'm still getting used to that in the AL Central. But then you have a pretty tough couple of series. I think you go Astros, Yankees, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is no schlub this year, especially now they've added Paul Skeens to their rotation. So these next 2 series are pretty important here for the Twins to really start hitting a groove, finding their stride, and getting back to winning ways.
Yeah, some of the things that were able to show up throughout this series in Washington, which I think are good signs, age. Number 1, Byron Buxton. He had 2 home runs yesterday. He got robbed of Mother Nature preventing one from going out in the later innings today. Would have been a home run in like 14 out of 30 parks. They even showed the expected hit rate, and if the wind wasn't blowing in basically from left field, that ball's probably out of the park again. Buck has missed some time, obviously with the knee problem, but he's a streaky hitter, so you'd like to hope that after stringing together a couple of really good games, and by the way, he played in all 3. I think he went center field, DH today, so he actually didn't get a day off. He will obviously have the day off tomorrow because the Twins have a built-in off day. But Buxton, I think, kind of showing some signs of life. He put a ball even the opposite field way for a home run yesterday. If you can ride out some of the high with Byron Buxton, because again, the streaky nature of him at the plate is obviously a thing. And hopefully this is a sign. I know even with the off day tomorrow, because that's good because he'll likely be in center field for Friday against Texas. Hopefully this is a streak of not just wins for the Twins, but they kind of go as Buxton goes. So if Buck's bat is heated up here and in the right direction, good things for the lineup too. And because we know how well his defense is, but if he can get on a run where he starts parking baseballs into the seats and he's got a lot of power and the streaky hitting nature that he is, hopefully that is also a good sign. You want to see that also carry over into the homestand against Texas and Kansas City.
Yeah, and this off day tomorrow is kind of like a double-edged sword because, one, you don't want Byron Buxton to have to exert himself too much, especially after that stint with the Saints and kind of the injury history that he's had. It's great. It's great for him to have that day off. You're able to use him 3 consecutive days. Now what can Rocco do? You're kind of game planning here, and we talked about that when he eventually would make his return, is like, I think a 2-to-1 split is what you want in terms of usage days. But on the offside, like you said, very streaky. It's only a day, but does that throw a guy off his game? Like that off day of not seeing that live opponent pitching, like you can get in the cages and do whatever you want there, but it's not that chess match of they're trying to get you out. When you're in the cage, they're trying to boost that confidence. So if you have that day off, it's great for his legs. It's great for just the stamina factor, the injury factor, but who knows what it's going to be when he finally does step back in the box against the Rangers 2 days from now.
Yeah, and even before the injury for Buck, the last 15 games he's actually been hitting a lot better. Again, there was a big lengthy IL stint mixed into the middle of there, but last 15 games for Buxton hitting .333. He has 3 home runs, slugging .583. He's not going to be a guy that draws a lot of walks. He's going to swing and miss a lot, but you'd like to think that hopefully the streakiness can at least carry over for half of the homestand. Like I don't know, maybe it carries over into Texas. Yes, the more important games are obviously against Kansas City since you are chasing them in the standings. And, everyone kind of made fun of the Royals for all they're spending money because they went from a 55-win team to trying to be a 70-win team. The Royals are good. Like I know that I know that's weird to hear. They won 2 World Series 10 years, or they went to back-to-back World Series 10 years ago. They got their crown in 2015, and then they kind of went back to being, one of the worst teams in baseball for a stretch. But the Royals made some additions. Good for them. They're competitive, and I like that the AL Central, we've talked about this a little bit, but last year the AL Central was collectively one of the worst divisions of all time. This year, Cleveland being off to their hot start, Kansas City kind of surprising some too, and the Twins who have been, flirting around some streaky nature of themselves. I like that the division is not just going to be backdooring your way into it for a crown. Last year, the Twins at this time had the exact same record they did coming into today, which was 2 games over 500, but the difference was they were, I believe, 2.5 games up in the Central 1 year ago today. Now, they entered play 6.5 games back. We'll see if they get a little bit more help. Maybe that goes to 6. But I like that there's a competitive division here. This isn't just a backdooring your way into a really bad division. This is going to be, as Cleveland said, which they got rightfully poked at last year, a dogfight. This is definitely going to be the dogfight to try to win this AL Central. And I guess at the worst, you probably are going to see 2 wildcard, or at least 1 wildcard team, so 2 teams coming out of the Central potentially when the playoffs do roll around in October. But the division is a lot better, so hopefully you can, yes, take care of business against Texas, that's first and foremost, but more importantly, take care of business against Kansas City next week.
Yeah, and having that competitive division, I think, does a lot for a team. If you're just the runaway favorite, and there's just really not a lot of competition. I mean, you're playing those teams so much to where at a certain point you almost get that shell shock of maybe you go, and this is now maybe an obsolete take, but you go Royals, you go Tigers, you go White Sox last year, for instance. Okay, you're going to win most of those games, but at the same time, what can you really say about those wins? What can you really here? You're playing that upper tier competition. It's back to back. You're constantly getting pushed, even though you're maybe going to struggle at times. You come out of it probably better because you're facing that higher competition more. So you raise your overall team skill and you're playing better baseball when you go out of division. And even the team that we didn't mention, the Tigers, sure, it's still the Tigers, but they're only right now a couple games below 500. They're not out of the mix by any means. I don't think they have the skill or roster to maybe get competitive in the long stretch of things. But, to say that it's a 4 to 5 teams in the AL Central right now are relatively competitive, I think is not an overstatement by any means. The White Sox are the White Sox, and that's just kind of what it is. But every other team is going to give you a run for your money any other day of the week, which I like.
So on Duran, so he walked the plank a little bit again today. He took a loss on Friday against Jose Ramirez, who parked a baseball in the 8th inning that led to him taking the loss. Obviously on Sunday, gives up the walk-off home run, and then there was the interesting comments about how I just kind of work here and I'm the employee. I wanted to throw a fastball. It caused a little bit, maybe, I wouldn't say a schism, but Rocco addressed the comments on Monday being, that's a guy that's obviously upset. We're losing baseball games, frustration at an all-time high. I don't think it was necessarily, Duran, being pouty by any means, but he's a guy who obviously can throw pretty hard. But here's the issue is Duran, even today, when you look at some of the velocity, now he had 2 fastballs that clocked triple digits, 100 and 100.7. But weirdly enough, every other pitcher, when you're throwing that hard, is, oh, that's awesome. We're used to 103, 104, 102. Duran, who battled an injury to start the year, wasn't really activated until mid to late April. I don't know if he's still trying to regain some of the strength that, wasn't there to start the year. But you definitely don't want to see Duran, who was obviously one of the more electrifying and more exciting relievers in baseball, go down for the worst. Like the Twins bullpen definitely held their own without Duran to start the year. But if Duran's, numbers and velocity continue to take a tailspin and at least maybe aren't what they should be, he does become a lot more hittable. And, we saw that over the last 3 appearances from him where he is giving up an earned run. He's allowing some traffic on base. This bullpen is built on bridging everything to get to Duran to a degree. You'd like to hope that Duran is not heading in the wrong direction.
Yeah, that would be a killer. I feel like just you started the year without him, and you made do for the most part. Obviously, it wasn't as good as I think a lot of people would have hoped for with that start to the season. You get him back, and I think the expectation coming off of what he did last year was, to your point, you get to the ninth, you get to the 8th, and maybe you have that setup guy, but then he comes in for the 9th, and it's just automatic. If you're up a run or 2, it does not matter. Maybe a guy gets on base from a fluky single. Maybe he walks a guy after a competitive count. But for the most part, you could just take a seat, pack it up, boys. Let's go home. We got this one in the bag. That has not been the case here lately, which is it's frustrating and a little bit disconcerting just because you do want to see that elite level guy. But when he's coming back, they're going to tell you what happened. But I feel like this makes me feel like there's stuff past what they have maybe not shared, which is like, how close to 100% is he? Are we still working our way back to like your arm strength thing? Because if you're forcing, in my mind, more of a pitch mix for a guy that relied so much on the heater ball, where maybe if he can't rely on that as much, are they more cautious about re-injury? Does it hurt him to throw that as much? And that's where I think there's a lot of question marks, which is what is the main concern here? If it's longevity and that's why you're working in more of the off speed, more of the changeup, more of the curveball type things, then, I understand it, but it's the same discussion I feel like that we've had in terms of Byron Buxton, which is you're going to use him a limited amount at times. And when you do, I think you'd rather have him be like normal Byron Buxton, normal Jhoan Duran, which is a guy who's touching triple digits, throwing it faster than, 99% of humans are able to. If you have to maybe have a Griffin Jack step in, who we saw at times earlier in the year, maybe wasn't the best option, but he's at times also looked like an okay option. Mm-hmm. You're going to make do that. So I would say if you're decreasing the number of times that you get him out on the bump there in the 9th, that's fine if the payoff is he's throwing it like he was last season, throwing it hard, leaning on that fastball simply because he knows, and the catcher knows, and the batter knows he's going to beat him because he can just throw it harder than the guy can get the bat around. So it is a little bit of a concern.
Yeah, 11 of Duran's 16 pitch day were the fastball. So, I mean, he definitely went to that a lot more today. And, the splinker was the one that I believe was hit out for a home run. So he's going to, and I get his frustration here because he's a guy who's built on having a triple-digit heater that's nearly untouchable. But if some of those off-speed and breaking balls, the splitters, the curveball, or the splinker, I should say, the splinker and the curve aren't where they should be, they become a lot more hittable. And that's what you don't want to have happen. Jax was great today. He had a big outing yesterday after really not pitching a lot over the last week, just simply because the Twins were losing games and they didn't want to waste a high-leverage reliever in a non-important situation. But I mean, today, the bullpen, after Simeon Woods-Richardson, which we can discuss here in just a sec, the bridge of the bullpen was Steven Okert into Jax, Jax, Funderburk, Thielbar, Duran. Like, Funderburk continues to struggle a little bit, and the Twins opted for all their lefties because of how many lefties were in the lineup for Washington today. And, it's rare to have 3 left-handed pitchers out of that bullpen. and they were able to use all three of them today. Funderburk probably being the weakest of the three in terms of the lefties that they're going to rely on. But the bullpen bridge was, kind of a blueprint of how when a starter gets pulled in the fifth, which is what happened with 2 outs left in the fifth today with Simeon, you need your bullpen guys to lock things down. And look, bullpens are volatile. You watch a lot of hockey. It's a lot like goaltending. You can have a stretch where it looks unstoppable, and then you have a stretch where you look like a sieve and you're allowing runs, you're allowing pucks. It becomes an issue, and it's always magnified when it is an issue. Even though sometimes bullpens are just going to have games where they do struggle. The Twins, though, can't afford for some of the high leverage bullpen arms that they have been using and that they've been relying upon this year to be their bread and butter. Again, like if that game slipped away, basically, and if Jeffers didn't get the insurance run of the ninth, we're talking about a game that would have been tied going to extra innings or potentially walking it off in the bottom of the ninth. Yeah, the bullpen is going to be a big strength for the Twins. Funderburk is probably here a little bit more on borrowed time. Louis Varland still remains a starter down there. David Festa remains a very good starting pitcher for the Saints, too, down there. That's one of their best pitching prospects, but Duran can't have struggles. Griffin Jacks has put together, I think, a very solid season here, lefties and righties. But Duran's struggles lately are definitely something to watch. You can't afford your flame-throwing closer to start taking a dip south, which the last 3 appearances, it's definitely been a dip south.
Yeah, and 5 earned runs on the season, all coming in the last 3 outings for him is just, you got to wonder. Everybody slumps, and I will say that. Everybody does have a slump, and for a guy that is coming back off of an injury, maybe there is going to be a little bit of that kind of seeping in, the mental stuff. Pitching is just so lonely out there where, sure, you can you have the pitch comm in your ear, and the robotic voice of the catcher is, soothing to an extent, but when it comes down to it, it's just him against the batter. So if you kind of start doubting yourself or there's some of that doubt that creeps in, it affects him just like it would a batter. A guy can easily go 0 for 18 as well as a pitcher can allow runs pretty much consecutive outings, consecutive starts, whatever it may be, whether they're a starter or a reliever. So you just got to hope he's able to line things back in, return to the form that we once saw, and just be the Duran that I think every Twins fan is hoping to see when you see the flames go, the lights dim, the phone lights come out.
Hell yeah.
And then 1, 2, 3, sit down.
So speaking of St. Paul Saints, you can go get your tickets for St. Paul Saints baseball by going to stpaulsaintsbaseball.com. One of the best spots in town to catch some of the best prospects too. The Twins AAA affiliate is just a quick car ride away from Target Field, a quick light rail ride away, however you want to get there. Go to saintsbaseball.com for tickets. One of the best parks all around, regardless of a minor league or major league park. Seriously, it's one of the best spots to see. And if hopefully Brooks Lee, who started playing the Complex League earlier this week, maybe he reports to St. Paul in the coming weeks. We should have an update on Royce Lewis when the Twins return home this weekend. So he'll be having some rehab games to catch at St. Paul. So a lot of great stuff. Go to saintsbaseball.com for tickets. On Simeon Woods-Richardson, speaking of St. Paul, he got called up to take the spot of Louis Varland. Puts together another really solid outing. He had a great outing on Friday against the Guardians. Today, 77 pitches, puts the team in a good spot to win the game. Got a lot of pitch to contact, which is, for Simeon, I think that's totally fine. Some balls in play. But Simeon Woods-Richardson, who looked like, all right, can we just get a horrible starter out of here or replace a starter out of here in Louis Varland, who is struggling, and can you replace him with Simeon Woods-Richardson, who at one time was a very top pick. He's been involved in a couple big trades. He had a really down year at AAA last year, but he worked on some different mechanics, worked on some different arm slots. You're seeing it on display here. Hey, he's the 5th starter in this rotation, and that's totally okay. Joe Ryan had a big outing on Tuesday. Pablo Lopez is a little bit on a roller coaster this year. Bailey Ober, I know, got hit around, but he's been solid. But Simeon Woods-Richardson stepping in today, another big start. He was on the mound to try to clinch a series win for the Twins, and he did more than his part. I know he got pulled in the 5th, and stupid baseball rules. He doesn't get credit for the win because he didn't complete 5 innings. Don't get me started on that. But regardless, a very solid outing for Woods-Richardson, who continues to put together really strong starts.
Yeah, he's been quite the surprise, I would say. When you're that 5th guy in the rotation, I think everybody's easily able to kind of overlook you and write you off, and you're just there to. It feels like you're the last kid picked at recess. You're
Right.
there because you're a number and whatnot. But when you actually contribute, credit to him. He's been maybe not the most deep of starts. Like you said, he doesn't get credit for the win today solely because he didn't complete 5. When you look at this past month for him, six innings back against the Mariners on the 6th. He went 4 1/3, 5 1/3, and then today 4 2/3 against the Nationals. So it's not like he is your solo guy who's going to be. He's not the most efficient of workers. He's going to get in a jam and probably have to go to the bullpen a little earlier, but that's not the worst thing at times if you do the job in that short span that you're out there, which I would say he has. 2.66 ERA this past month. It's not like it's, he's not nowhere going to be in like Cy Young conversations by any means, but he's not a guy that you're anxious and itching to, get over and pass that start in the rotation. When I see Simeon Woods-Richardson, I'm thinking, okay, Twins got a shot to win. It's they're not going to, just him going on the mound is not, a scarlet letter for a loss is coming, mark the L. No, he's going to put them in a chance where if the bats are there, and you saw it today, especially with that nice little insurance run late in the game, they're able to get themselves a win. So if he just keeps doing what he's doing, he is the 5th guy in the rotation, and he's not going to probably garner the spotlight and get these giant awards and probably get the clamoring that I think a lot of more notable guys are going to get. But boy, he is a role player who is doing his job. And when you're that 5th starter, it's you're the anchor that often gets overlooked. And I think he's fitting into that role quite nicely.
And, with Joe Ryan going 7 yesterday, or going into the 7th yesterday, Monday's game was out of reach. You can afford, to throw 4 or 5 bullpen arms to bridge your way to a win, which is obviously, I think, kind of been a big buzzword of how do you bridge your way to a win. And when the Twins have one of the deeper bullpens in the league, I know Duran again has been walking the plank. We talked about that in this podcast, but when you have other starters that can go deep into games, it makes building out that bullpen a lot easier. And now you have the built-in off day on Thursday, so I'm going to kind of recharge and reset as they head home tonight back to Minneapolis, sleep in their own beds for a couple nights before playing their own game against Texas on Friday, which will be a packed area Minneapolis. In case you didn't hear, the Twins did move up Friday's game from a 7 o'clock game to a 6 o'clock game to accommodate the madness that will be the Minnesota Timberwolves in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals at 7:30 just across the plaza from Target Field. So if you were planning to go to Friday's game, make sure that that it is a 6 o'clock game. They moved up that start time. Going to be an awesome atmosphere regardless in downtown Minneapolis. But yeah, Simeon Woods-Richardson, big game. You had Byron Buxton, park a couple baseballs, remains a little streaky in a good way. And, Ryan Jeffers, who finally cooled off, gives them an insurance run. Some of these lefties, Kepler had another multi-hit game. Trevor Larnach had more hard-hit balls. Poor Alex Kirilloff got robbed on what should have been an easy base hit for him. You saw some signs of life, hopefully, that after a losing streak that obviously plagued this team, hopefully now they're heading in the right direction as they come home for a big 7-game homestand.
Yeah, and like I said at the top of the show, this is going to be a fun little storyteller for them before they head back out. You come back home, you're out fresh 2 wins. This is where you need to just buckle down and start winning those games at home. I mean, you talk about home field advantage, that fortress that, when they come into your house, you're supposed to take care of business. We haven't really seen that for the most part. It's kind of been a tug of war where we'll give you a couple runs, we'll take some back, and, we'll split the series, or, we'll take 2 or 3 here, we'll drop 2 or 3 the next time around. So if the Twins can just start doing what they should on home turf, I think this season it's going to go in the direction that a lot of people want, which I think eventually can lead to an AL Central title.
Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. This is Score North Extra Innings. I'm Declan Goff. That's AJ Fredrickson. You can expect some more maybe full-strength Twins content tomorrow on the Score North YouTube channel. Flagrant Howls is obviously red hot. We'll be there from the Target Center. Mackie Judd will be, of course, to break things down. Check out our social channels, too. And also, if you're driving around the Metro and you see a Flagrant Howls billboard, take a picture of that. That's right. They're all over the damn place. We got billboards. We got roving digital trucks that are roaming around, for God's sakes. We are all over the map. So whether you're consuming a podcast, whether you're enjoying a pint at the local establishments in downtown Minneapolis, plenty of great stuff that'll be happening here in downtown Minneapolis between Twins and Wolves. Super excited for the next few weeks here as a Minnesota sports fan. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. This is Score North Extra Innings. We'll be talking at you later this week.